The next thing we're going to look at is configuration of the file drag and drop. So there is a file drag and drop setup assistant to help you to configure this bundle. To access it, we go to Setup, Customization, File drag and drop setup. It consolidates the commonly used file drag and drop preferences into one location to streamline the setup for you, but you don't have to perform all of the steps. On the Preferences tab, the first option you'll have is Enable File Drag and Drop. This will obviously need to be ticked if you want to be able to use the feature. The next option we have is the Global Destination folder. When this option is filled in, drop zone areas will be visible in all of the record types within NetSuite. All attachments, regardless of where the record is attached, will be placed into the same folder. So there's no segregation between sales order attachments or purchase order attachments. So to populate this, you click into the field and it will bring up your list of folders that already exist in your filing cabinet. If you want to click a new one, you click on New Folder and we can give it the name. If it's going to be a subfolder of another folder, you can click the drop-down list and choose the folders to be the subfolder of. And if you want to, you can restrict it by class, department, location, subsidiary, or by groups. And then also you can make it private if you don't want other users to be accessing it. And then if you're restructuring your filing cabinet and maybe you want to make this folder inactive, you can make it inactive. So click on Save. And then on the left-hand side, I can now see my folder name and I click Choose Folder. And now what will happen is all my attachments will go into that folder in the filing cabinet. The next field we have is the error message recipient. So in here, you set the recipient's email address for the file drag and drop error messages. If this field is left blank, the error messages will be sent to all account administrators. Another thing to bear in mind is that the file drag and drop features are only going to be available on forms or records within NetSuite that have a Files subtab in them. If the subtab has been removed as part of a customized form that you're using, the drop zone is not going to be displayed at the top of the form. So if you are using custom forms and you've removed your Files subtab and you do want to use this file drag and drop, you'll need to add the Files subtab back in first onto your custom form before you'll be able to see your drop zone areas. So as we'd mentioned, if you fill in this global option, all attachments, regardless of the record that they were saved from, will all go into the same folder. If you want to be able to do a bit of segregation and that you want your purchase orders to go to one folder and you want your sales orders to go to a different folder, you can leave this option blank and then click on Save and Next. So what I want to do is I want to make the file drag and drop to only be available on certain forms. So I don't necessarily want it also on my purchase orders or my sales orders or my customer records or supplier records. What I want is I only want it on my sales orders. So rather than going around and amending all of my forms and removing the Files subtab because they may be needed for other things, what I can do is if I leave my global option blank, and then on my record types, I click on New File Drag and Drop Record. And I choose what record I want it to go onto. So I want it to go into my sales orders. And then I choose the name of where I want it to go. So I can choose my drag and drop folder, but I want to segregate it a little bit more. So I want there to be a new folder called Sales Orders within my drag and drop files. So I'm going to click a new folder, Sales Orders. And you can see there it's already the subfolder of my drag and drop files. And sales order attachments. And again, I have my same restrictions as before, and then I can click on Save. And click my sales orders and then choose folder. So what we'll see now is that it will save my sales orders into drag and drop files and into another folder called sales orders. And I could repeat this step for my purchase orders, for my customers and my suppliers. So within the drag and drop folder, all of the different record types will have their own folders. Another thing that you can use is that you can use a folder pattern. So rather than using this folder name over here, we can tick this option. This then becomes grayed out. But what I want to do this time is I could have multiple subsidiaries for my company. So what I want is I actually want all of my attachments to go into a drag and drop folder. And then within that drag and drop folder, I want there to be another folder that references the subsidiary that it belongs to. And then within that subsidiary folder, there'll be another folder called Sales Orders. So all of my sales orders for one particular subsidiary will go into one attachment folder. So what I do is we use what's called placeholders. So I have my drag and drop files. My subsidiary ID is in curly brackets because it's an unknown field and it's a placeholder. And that's going to change depending on the subsidiary. and then I have my sales order folder at the end. So if I'm happy with that, I click on Save. And then I click Save and Next. So what we'll see now is that I have a sales order drag and drop into this location, and it's going to save it in using my folder pattern. Because I am using my folder pattern, it's going to disregard my folder name and it's going to use the pattern instead. So once you're happy with your settings that you've made, click on Finish. There are more examples where you can use placeholders, so you don't necessarily have to use your subsidiary ID as your placeholder, but there is a Suite Answers article number 39442, and this will give you more examples of placeholders that you can use in the folder pattern.